Cryptocurrency is basically an exchange of value. It's ultimately going to become the underlining layer to just about everything that we do. Cryptocurrencies are ultimately going to take over fiat. The more you educate yourself, the more you empower yourself.
This is where I believe we are going to end up by the halving. One way or another, this is where I think we're going to be. Somewhere around 14,000. It could be around 11,000. So I've said between 11 and 14,000 by the time of the halving, which is this yellow line right here. And, maybe we don't. But I believe at some point within this time frame, we will. Corona be damned. But remember, this line here is the halving. So, and that is my goal. This is the goal line for me. I want to see a $14,000 Bitcoin, for 11 to 14,000 by the time we get to the halving. Exactly smack dab in the center of this, and we're accumulating now. My hope is, because of the fact that we're getting closer to the halving, this is my mark. I set this mark months ago. This is where I expect and hope to be by the time we get to the halving. It's really between 11 to 14,000 is what I'm expecting. I did have to move my halving line up 2 days because it looks like we're looking at May 12th now, not the 14th. And who knows, by the time we get there, it could be May 10th. So we'll see what happens. This is my actually, about there is where I want it. I think I bumped it when I moved it. 11,000 and 14,000. Those are my goals. Those are my goals for Bitcoin by the halving. And somebody posed a question to me recently. I think it was either today or yesterday. And he basically said, what is the significance of the halving? Why is everybody so crazed about the halving? What's it going to do for Bitcoin? And a lot of people are going to try and convince other people that the price of the halving is built into Bitcoin, and I call BS on that. I've never thought that to be the case, because I'm big on sentiment, right? Sentiment in a speculative market like cryptocurrencies is definitely the leader in terms of crypto valuation to a large degree, in my opinion. Okay. Now, I made this graphic and I'm going to try and it's very rudimentary and very nothing spectacular. So I didn't make it all pretty full of fun graphics, but I'm going to break this down in a very simple way. I just threw this together very quickly in Photoshop. Photoshop. Okay. Yeah. That should be fine. I know my big noggin's in the way of the end, but I can move it. We won't see under 5K ever again. Well, I never say never because you just never know, but I would agree. All right. So anyway, here we go. So basically, let's just say hypothetically, Bitcoin's demand right now is about $400 million a month. And these figures are, I basically pulled these from an article based on what has been pretty consistent since 2017, that roughly $400 million a month is going into Bitcoin. Okay. And that's been pretty consistent, give or take a little bit based on volatility and what's going on in the market. Now, if $400 million worth of Bitcoin is entering the market from miners, well, then the volatility might create, because you've got market cap and things like that pushing the price up or down. It's not necessarily just the hard sell. It's not just the hard price action of Bitcoin. So let's just say we kind of average out, right, to around where we are right now. Okay, 6,500, 7,500. And from there, as we get closer to the halving, anticipation starts to build. People don't want to miss out on what's coming. People are used to seeing this cyclical activity of, this bullish sentiment. The bottom has been found. We've risen from 3,100 to where we're at now. Keep in mind, I'm pretty sure when I first got into Bitcoin back in 2017, I shouldn't even say Bitcoin because that wasn't even my first love. It was altcoins, really. I think Bitcoin was somewhere around 8,000. It was about now. Okay. And that was towards the end, like that was right before the big parabolic run up to 20,000, caught everybody like, oh my God, this is insanity. So we're still in the early stages. We're still at like Bitcoin at, I don't know, I have to look at the chart, but we're still at like $1,000 Bitcoin right now in like 2017. So that's where we are now with around the $6,500, $7,500, $8,000 Bitcoin. Okay. Now, here on in May, the amount of Bitcoin that is entering the market from miners will be cut in half. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's going to be cut in half, which means that right now, anticipation for this halving event is driving the price up as people are accumulating, expecting this to be the true beginning of this next big bull market. Okay. So right now, they're kind of, let's just say they're averaging each other out with a little fluctuation and a little volatility. The anticipation is building. Boom, we get to the halving. What happens? People start taking profits because that's what we're used to seeing. They're expecting to be able to get back in and buy it back a little bit cheaper, make that quick turnaround, right, of improving their position in Bitcoin. Whether that plays out this time around, I don't know. I am skeptical of it happening that way this time, okay? But if you look at the past, there's typically a little bit of a dip post-halving because the value of Bitcoin rises prior to the halving date, drops a little bit, then there's a little bit of an accumulation phase, and then it starts to go up. Now, what's going to happen at this point, the price is going to start getting crazy because now we've got $200 million worth of Bitcoin entering the space instead of $400 million. And we still have $400 million or more in demand for the same amount of Bitcoin. So a few videos back, I discussed how Bitcoin, I think it was like $21 million based on that current order book, $21 million going into buying Bitcoin would push Bitcoin up around $1,500. Okay. So if you take those figures, I did a little, this is rough. But let's just say we have $200 million, no. Oh, I did that backwards. So 400 million divided by 30. Yeah, that's $13.3 million a day in demand for Bitcoin, okay? If I take this $400 million worth of demand, divide that into 30, that's 13.3 million. So basically every 2 days from this point, Bitcoin could potentially be going up $1,500 every 2 days, okay? Now, that's not necessarily going to be the case, especially for the next couple years as we stay in a bull market. However, and because prices are going to fluctuate, right? I mean, a lot of stuff is going to happen in that time period. But what you're going to see is you're going to see likely a lot more people buying less Bitcoin at one particular point in time. So rather than buy 2 Bitcoin, they might buy 1. Instead of buying 1 Bitcoin, they might buy half of a Bitcoin. Or, you get what I'm saying? So then what we're used to seeing during a bull market is a 40% correction in Bitcoin. This is because the steam is building in the kettle here, okay? And once it's ready to blow, people take profits, and it seems to be a pretty universal thing based off of historical charts. What has happened in the past around this time frame? What's happening in the market? It's a psychological affair. It's a matter of basically being able to understand psychologically where the market is and what's coming based off of what's happened in the past. And I know everybody says, There's no guarantee that what's happened in the past is going to happen in the future, yada, yada, yada. That goes without saying. Anything could happen. We weren't expecting Corona basically shoot everything down to, 50% overnight either. So anything could happen in the market. However, a 40% correction is known to happen multiple times throughout Bitcoin's rise. The difference is, and why it's not that big of a deal to me, is because typically once Bitcoin has dropped 40%, that's after it's already risen 300% or a good amount. So if it were to rise 100% and drop 40, you're still calculating a 60% increase in price after this correction, and then it starts moving back up again. Once we see this, once we get to the point where we're starting to see this large correction, this is the point in time, and my guess is going to be somewhere around 30,000. I don't know. It could be a little less than that, maybe 25. I don't know. There could be some fear from people once Bitcoin gets back to 20 grand, and then they start going, and maybe that starts the first big correction. We'll see. But when that happens, that is when I see money starting to spill into the altcoins. And that is where I see the market really starting to take shape once again. And I don't know how long that'll be. It could be 6 months from now. It could be a year from now before that starts to happen. But what's going to happen is people are going to start taking some of the profit that they've made in the Bitcoins, and they're going to start pumping it into the altcoin markets. And then this is the thing. At this point, it's going to be people buying and selling altcoins using Bitcoin that's going to ultimately bump both of their market caps. And as the market caps for all of that continue to rise up, then that's going to create more FOMO, which is going to pull people in from the world who are going to start buying in en masse, and then away we go. And then we're going to see this fluctuation, and that volatility is going to take shape over the period of, it could be a year, 2 years, could be 3 years, who knows? Some people are showing logarithmically that the market cycles are growing over time. In other words, they're lengthening. And that may very well be the case. So, but that is ultimately what happens in a nutshell. I hope I made some sense. But you're basically taking the current amount of available supply, cutting it in half, which is now in more demand because the demand that we had yesterday is now either the same or going to grow. That's going to pump up the Bitcoin price. Then we have the halving, and then that halving is going to turn into more growth price action. We'll get a pretty decent correction, and that correction is ultimately going to lead into the altcoin market. And then once money starts flowing steadily into the altcoins again, the cream is going to rise to the top in the altcoin market. There are going to be a lot of altcoin wars. I believe in this cycle, I'm expecting to see a lot more buyouts. I'm expecting to see projects that have been able to maintain themselves get bought out by even more traditional companies. I expect to see more stuff like that. And I said that back in 2018, like that there's going to come a day when a lot of these projects they start to get bought up by some of these more traditional companies looking to get into blockchain. And because a lot of these companies, the traditional companies, have fundamentally more resources, relationships, and the like to take some of these companies that have been able to at least keep active and keep development and take them to a whole new level that a lot of these, like originally ICO companies maybe weren't able to withstand. They're not able to do those things right now. We'll see. That could be really good for some of these ICO projects, though, especially ones that have been, just holding steady and hanging out. But the volatility between altcoins and Bitcoin, that's when you're going to start seeing hard, heavy-hitting bot trading. You're going to start seeing me, I'm sure, coming on. I made this much money today using CrowTrader, and this is how I did it. You're going to see it all because this is going to be when the market is primed for that. Because it's going to be when, I'm telling you, shit is going to get nuts soon. That's what I truly believe. I expect the next few weeks to be stupid because I still expect to see an $11,000 Bitcoin. I really do. So I have high hopes, people. I'm very bullish on what's going on. And the more I look at the history, the more I look at these old articles from Wayback Machine, the more I see the headlines and how they match up to exactly what's going on today, the better I feel about, we already know where this is going. We know where this is going. At least we have a very good general idea. And I, for one, am extremely bullish, and I feel better about things today than I certainly felt about things yesterday. So, I mean, hell, we're getting some pretty decent price action right now as we move closer to the halving. We're almost there. All we have to do is hold out. Let's hope that within the next, 16 to 20 days, we start getting a significant pump, because I would still like to see an $11,000 Bitcoin by the halving